Hello everybody. It's really cold and snowy outside, but I thought it was a nice time to be inside and just telling you a story. Thought that would be much better. I promised you a Max Lucado story, so I'm going to read you one, and it's called Most Marvellous Gift. It's about the Wemmicks again. Do you remember those little wooden people? Punchinello's feet dangled from Eli's workbench. This is my favourite time of year, Eli. I love Maker Day. Well, that's great, the big-handed woodworker smiled as he swept the sawdust from the floor. I love being your maker. This year, I want to do something really big for you. You do? Eli paused and asked, like what? I don't know yet, but I'll think of something. Just being with you is enough for me, Punchinello, the woodcarver told him. But I want to do more. I like you. I love you. I want all to see. Without you, Eli, there'd be no me. The little Wemmick's eyes grew wide. Hey, that rhymes. He jumped off the bench and gave his maker a big hug. Just wait, Eli. This year, I'm doing something really big for you. He scampered out of the door, making a song out of the words he had just said. I like you, I love you, I want all to see. Without you, Eli, there'd be no me. Dearie me, what a strange song. Be careful, little friend, Eli smiled and waved. So he's going off singing. Punchinello sang his song all the way to Wemmicksville. The village was bustling. Wemmicks packed the streets and shops. Everyone was getting ready for the big day. The wee Wemmick choir rehearsed in the village square. Workers were putting up the town tree. Some townspeople shopped. Others painted windows. Everyone smiled. Maker Day made everyone happy. And Maker Day made Hans the baker busy baking a 7-layer version of his famous chocolate cherry truffle cake with double buttercream icing. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? Punchinello loved to visit his plump friend with the starched hat. He peeked into the window of the bakery to see Hans on tiptoe on the top of a very tall ladder, placing cherries around the 7th layer. The cake nearly touched the ceiling. Punchinello smacked his lips and stepped into the doorway. Hi, Hans, Punchinello called. The baker jumped, and the ladder began to sway, back, until Hans yanked himself and the ladder forward and started falling towards the cake. Oh no, Hans would have plunged right into it. But Punchinello dashed across the room, scampered up the ladder, and grabbed the baker by the collar. Phew! Hans sighed, his face watching the cake. He was within licking distance of the icing. Oh, I'm sorry, Punchinello apologized. No problem, little friend, Hans replied as he climbed down the ladder. My mind was on the cake. He turned, placed his hands on his hips and beamed. Isn't it something? Triumphant truffles. My cake is going to be the best part of the Maker Day festival. 7 layers. Wow, that must be massive. Really? Oh, definitely, the very best part. Now, if you'll hand me that pot of cherries. So Punchinello did. Hans climbed back up the ladder. Punchinello decided to see what else was happening in Wemmicksville. See you later, Hans. But the busy baker didn't hear. His mind was on the cherries. And at the next shop, Violet's mind was on the flowers. Her bouquet stood taller than her entire shop. But where was the florist? I've never seen so many flowers, Punchinello said to himself. Do you like it? asked a voice from deep within the mountain of flowers. Violet peeked out at Punch through the daisies. Well, I think I do, but it's so big I can't see it all. It's the biggest bouquet in the history of Wemmicksville, Violet boasted, as she placed a red carnation next to a white tulip. What's it for? Well, Make-A-Day, of course. My beautiful bouquet will be the best part of tomorrow's Make-A-Day festival. But Hans just told me. Violet glared at him. Hans and his cake? Huh. Eli will like my flowers better than that baker's stack of dough. She lifted her chin and turned back to the bouquet. Oh, Punchinello swallowed. I think I'll move on. He stepped around the flowers and into the street, bumping into his friend Lucia, who was reading a sheet of music. Happy Make-A-Day, Lucia. Oh, same to you, Punch. I'm late for my singing lesson. Singing lesson? Yeah, I'm going to sing a solo at the Make-A-Day festival. My song is going to make this the best Make-A-Day ever. But Hans and Violet just said. Lucia didn't hear him. Dr. Marvel is training me. He will accompany me on his Marvelaphany organoni. I made up a song today, Punchinello started, but then he stopped. Marvel, what? Come on, I'll show you. But we have to hurry. I can't keep Dr. Marvel waiting. Lucia grabbed Punchinello's hand and led him down the busy street. Past the toy store, packed with little Wemmicks. Past the dress store window painted red and green. Past the huge Make-A-Day tree standing in the middle of Wemmick Square. Punchinello paused at the sight of the enormous tree. Hey, let's add some decorations. We don't have time, Punch. Come on. Around the corner they turned. The studio was just off the main street. The sign over the door read, Dr. Marvel's Music Manufactory. The moment they closed the door, the two friends heard music erupt in the big room. Trumpets blared, flutes whistled, drums kaboomed, and tubas bellowed. Punchinello looked around for a marching band. When he didn't see one, he backed behind Lucia. Oh, don't be afraid, she said. It's the Marvelaphany organoni. She motioned towards this huge contraption that took up the back half of the studio. Punchinello had never seen anything like it. In the centre sat a piano. 2 saxophones hung from one side and a bass drum from the other. 5 flutes dangled from the drum. Trumpets stuck out above the piano, and a mechanical arm banged a spoon on a pot. On the very top, a fishing line yanked the dapper clapper of a bell. A train whistle stopped, tooted, and trombones played in turn. Looking small in front of it all was Dr. Marvel. His hands raced back and forth between the piano keyboard and a large panel of buttons, switches, and levers, each with a sign. Louder, softer, more beep, big booms, pull for taps, tug for toots. His feet moved even faster. One pumped air into the instruments. The other foot pressed the bass pump drum pedal. Wow. The musician was in non-stop motion. Doctor, called Lucia loudly, but not loudly enough. Dr. Marvel, she shouted. He still didn't turn. Dr. Marvel! She and Punchinello yelled together at the tops of their voices. The music came to a sudden stop, and the little Wemmick turned his head. When he saw Lucia, his thick eyebrows lifted, and he peered over his glasses, a bit like this. "Why, come in. And who is your friend?" "This is Punchinello." "Hello, funny pillow. Please come in and rest. Isn't my music machine the absolute best?" "My name is Punchinello. I've never seen anything like your machine." "And you never will. Did you hear it bellow? This invention is one of a kind, Marshmallow." "Punchinello," Punch said, glancing at Lucia. She just shrugged. Dr. Marvel didn't hear. He had turned to Lucia. "And now, my dear, have you come to sing? Together you and I will make a day ring." "I've been practicing my song," Lucia said. Punchinello spoke up. "Hey, speaking of songs, I made one up for Eli." But neither Dr. Marvel nor Lucia listened. They were already tuning up the Marvelophony organoni, leaving Punchinello standing alone. He stepped outside. "Make-a-day is almost here, and I still don't know what I'm going to do for Eli." Then he remembered what Eli had said. "Just having you with me is enough, Punchinello." But he still wanted to do something for him. The next morning he was still thinking about the gift for Eli. With hands deep in his pockets, Punchinello talked to himself all the way to Wemmicksville. I do that sometimes. Maybe I could bake a Wembury pie. Then he remembered how awful his last one tasted. No, I can't cook. What if I made a bouquet for Eli? Then he remembered Violet's bouquet. No, he can't do that. Punchinello had no idea what to do. It was Make-a-Day, and he had no gift to give his maker. The main street overflowed with Wemmicks. Every wooden person in Wemmickville was pressing towards the town square, where a large circle had been roped off. In the centre of the circle, the Make-a-Day tree sparkled. The mayor and his wife stood on a large platform, and before them were 3 objects hidden under pieces of canvas. Punchinello knew exactly what they were. Violet stood next to one, hands beside the other, and Lucia paced between them, back and forth, in front of the covered music machine. She looked worried. Dr. Marvel was nowhere to be seen. Punchinello caught her attention. "Lucia," he shouted, "where's Dr. Marvel?" And she looked over her shoulder and pointed towards the blanketed instrument. That's when Punchinello saw some moving bumps under the cover. "Something's broken," she said. Before Punchinello could ask any more, the mayor and his wife stepped in front of the huge Make-a-Day festival sign, tapped on the microphone, and announced, "Happy Make-a-Day, everyone." The crowd cheered. Unrolling a big scroll, the mayor began to read a very boring speech. "Being that this is Make-a-Day, and we are made by our Maker, I hereby and so forth with and heads for pleasure." Punch noticed Dr. Marvel peeking out from under the cover, motioning to Lucia. She leant over, he whispered, and she turned red. She whispered back. Punchinello knew something was wrong. That's when they looked at him. Lucia motioned for him to come over. He crawled under the ropes. "You've got to help us. The air pumper is stuck. Dr. Marvel needs you to run the controls while he keeps it working." "But I don't know how to." "It's easy," she interrupted. "Just sit on his shoulders and do what he says." The crowd began to cheer again. The mayor had presented Violet and her flowers. The 3 stopped whispering long enough to see her curtsy in front of her bouquet. "The best part of Make-a-Day," shouted the mayor. "Oh, no, it's not," screamed Hans. He was already on the top step of his ladder. At a wave of his hand, a rope was yanked, and the canvas pulled straight up, unveiling his 7-layer chocolate cherry truffle cake. I like the idea of that. With double butter ice cream icing. The townspeople gasped. Then they roared in approval. Violet crossed her arms and frowned, and Dr. Marvel motioned to Punchinello. "Come on, Ronno-Jello, it's time to play. We'll be the best part of this Maker-Day." The musician sat on his bench. Punch climbed onto his shoulders, and Lucia stood with her back to them, interlocking her fingers, pointing her elbows to either side, and prepared to sing. Punchinello stared at all the buttons. He gulped, and he thought to himself, "How will I ever do this?" There were so many of them. Big blast, soft windy sound, bells tinkling, harps singing. I don't think I can do. Before Punchinello could finish, Dr. Marvel called him into action. "Honey Mellow, let's get flashing. Pull the lever that reads cymbal clashing." Punchinello looked frantically, spotted the lever, and gave it a pull. Mechanical hands lifted a set of cymbals, and crash! The song began. Lucia started singing, her voice warbling up and down as if someone was shaking her. Thinking she was sick, Punchinello looked over his shoulder. But Lucia wasn't sick. "Why are you making that noise?" he shouted to her. "Patsy fellow, for chit-chat we have no time. Reach to the right and give me a chime." Punchinello pulled the rope bell and felt the music professor bouncing beneath him, pushing doubly hard on the air pump. Instruments came alive, blasting and blowing, surrounding Punchinello in a hurricane of music. Dr. Marvel kept shouting instructions as Punch pushed buttons. "A blast from the tuba! Now strings from the cello! Keep alert up there, funny fellow!" "My name is Punchinello," the lever-yanking Wemmicks yelled. He leaned down so his voice would be heard. He shouldn't have lowered his head. His forehead hit the lever labelled "Let Her Go," and the Marvel-Laffany organoni started to rumble. Wemmicks grabbed their children and covered their ears. The earthquaking platform shook the mayor out of his chair. Decorations fell from the tree. Lucia stopped singing. The professor started shouting, "Turn it down! She's starting to shake. The last thing we want is for this thing to break." It was too late. The train whistle flew off first, blasting away from the Marvel-Laffany organoni like a skyrocket. The trombones were next to go. Then the saxophones. With the boom of a kettle drum, everything else exploded. Flutes flew, cymbals sailed. Punch and the professor were doing all they could, flipping switches, pulling ropes, but nothing helped. Dr. Marvel should have stopped pumping, but for some odd reason, he pumped harder than ever. And so there were no instruments. The air blasted through the bouncing hose right at Hans' 7-layer chocolate cake, blowing icing and cherries all over the Wemmicks. Lucia grabbed the flapping hose and yanked it away from the cake, but accidentally aimed it in the direction of Violet's bouquet. The air was suddenly filled with flowers. Petals rained down on the already sticky, cake-covered Wemmicks. The villagers were stunned. 1 minute they were ducking flying French horns. The next they were showered with cake and carnations. Then in an instant the pandemonium stopped. The town square went quiet, and the Wemmicks stood in shock from the explosion. "Ah, me dillo, my friend, may I tell you something? It looks to me like you pushed the wrong button." Hans and Violet wiped clumps of dough from their eyes. The mayor and his wife looked like snow creatures covered with cake icing from head to toe. Only Lucia, the professor, and Punchinello were uncaked and unpetalled. For a long time no one moved. No one knew what to say. And that's when they heard the flute. A single, small, sweet-sounding flute. A little girl, standing next to the tree, hair sticky with cake, was playing it. At first, she didn't notice everyone looking. But when she did, she stopped. "Oh, I'm sorry," she blushed. "It just landed in my lap." "Oh, please," Punchinello pleaded. "Keep playing." Everyone nodded. The soft flute sounded nice after the bellowing. Not far from the girl, an old Wemmick picked up a violin and began to play. Another villager found a clarinet and played along. Within a matter of moments, there were a dozen musicians serenading the townspeople with beautiful music. Dr. Marvel sighed with relief. Lucia smiled. Punchinello raised his hand and announced, "Hey, every Wemmick, I've got a great idea." Eli was hard at work when he heard the music. The sound was so sweet it made him put down his hammer and lean out of the window of his workshop. Looking down the hill, he saw a long line of Wemmicks. He listened with his whole heart to the words of the song. Some played it, some sang it. Everyone meant it. "We like you, we love you, we all agree. Without you, Eli, there'd be no we." When all the Wemmicks had gathered before him, Eli had to smile. The town made quite a choir, cake-covered, flower-covered, and smiling like they'd never had so much fun. They sang the verse over and over until finally they stopped and applauded for Eli, and he clapped for them. "What a most marvellous song," he thanked them, "and what a most marvellous gift." Dr. Marvel spoke up in agreement. "Mellow Yellow, my friend, this moment I must say is without a doubt the best of Make-a-Day." Isn't that a wonderful story? I think the machine must have been quite scary when it exploded and threw instruments everywhere. And how funny it would have been to see the cake just blasted all over everybody. And the flowers! My goodness me. They wouldn't forget that in a hurry, would they? Next week, we're going to have another story. So I'll see you then. Enjoy the quiz with Steve. Bye.
Hi, boys and girls. Another great story by Mandy. This week we're going to play a game. It's a different game, and you're going to need your detective eyes. I'm going to pan the camera around our little flat, just round our lounge. Now, I've left it a bit cluttered up because there's lots of things that I want you to notice. Take very careful notice of all the things that you see. I'm going to spin the camera around. Because I'm spinning the camera, you might not be able to hear everything I say, so I speak as loud as possible. All right, here we go. Keep your eyes peeled and have a look as I spin the camera around. Ooh, what are we seeing here? We're spinning the camera round. There's Mandy's red chair where she likes to sit, and in front of it, a little table, some pictures, the printer, over there. Oh, there's Fleetwood the Turtle's tank, and I think you'll probably see him today. Okay, looking round, we can see the window and the garden outside. There's a table with stuff on it. Moving round a bit more, we can see the television. And oh, must have left him over from Christmas. And there's the fish tank with my fish inside it, a bookcase, some photos and pictures on the wall, bookcase, telephone, calendar, and we're moving back where we started. Did you catch all of that? Because I'm going to play I Spy. I'm going to give you a letter and you got to try and guess what it is in the room that you have to be able to see it that might have begun with that letter. And we're beginning with the letter F. F. Did you see anything beginning with the letter F? Ha! You say fruit that was on the table. No, it's not that. What about the fish tank? Ah, well, we did see that, but it wasn't that. What about my finger? No. On my foot? No. On my face? No. What about Mandy's foot warmer? Might not have seen that, just on the floor like a monkey. She puts her feet in there to keep her warm. No, it wasn't any of those things. It was the fish. Do you remember them? Let's see if we can see them again. Are we ready? There they are. Can you see them swimming around? Okay. So F was for fish. Okay, the next letter is B. What begins with a B? Was it boots? There were some boots, but they were down in the corner. You might not have quite seen them. There was a bookcase, but it wasn't that. Probably didn't see the Blu-ray player under the TV. Did you see the basket where all the games were? Do you remember that? No, wasn't any of those anyway. It was down on the chair there. Books. B is for books. Well done if you got that one. Here's another one. Are we ready? P. Letter P. P. What began with P? With P. Well, there was some paper over on the table, but it wasn't that. There was the printer, where we print photos and things, but it wasn't that. Was it photos on the wall? No. Was it a pencil in the jar here, or the pen? No. Was it the phone? Do you remember the phone in the corner? No. Or the red plant on the floor? No. It was, well, you can see it up on the wall behind me there. Pictures. See that one of a white tiger over there on the back of the wall? And there's a real ordinary coloured tiger underneath it. Pictures was the right answer. Next letter is curly K. The C. What began with a K? Well, there were cabinets on the wall where Mandy keeps her thimbles, but it wasn't that. Was it the ceiling? No. Was it the computer? No. Was it the curtains by the window? No. Or the chair on which Mandy and I sit? No. Was it the calendar down here beside me? No. Was it a cushion? No. Was it sellotape? I stick things with? No, no, no. It was, I don't know if you remember seeing it, a candle. I'll try and show you. We've got a candle over here down by the television. Let's see if I can see it. Pop it up there for you. Do you see that tall thin one there right in the corner? And a fat one next to it. Difficult to see with the camera, but I think you might have caught an eye of it. And of course, now we've got the letter S. Are we ready? What began with a S? Was it the stapler over by the printer? Did you see that? You'd have been very observant if you saw that. Is it my socks? No. Was it my shoes in the corner? No. Was it my slippers? No. Was it my sweater? No. Was it the switch? No. Was it the shark? Did you see the shark by the television? Not a real one, just a plastic one. No, it wasn't that. It was. Do you remember? We left him over from Christmas. We left him out. We forgot all about him. It was Santa down there in the corner. That was a sneaky one, wasn't it? And our last one begins with T. T or T. Was it the table? No. Was it the television? No. Was it my trousers? No. Was it the telephone? No. Was it my T-shirt? No. Was it the table mat? No. I have to tell you one. It's the last one, and it was down here. That pink tablecloth on the table. How many of those did you get? Did you get any at all? If you got any, I think you did very well, and you're budding detectives. But that's all for now. It's time to say bye until next week. See ya.